Ooh, got a notification. Yeah, we're in. I can see it.
Hi, hello everyone, and good evening to you. This is our first ever Facebook Live for Delta, which is absolutely fantastic. I've been wanting to reach you everywhere on Facebook in 2021. So I'd like to kick off by giving some updates and what Delta is all about. My name is Ed Rex. I am the chair of Delta, and we are here to provide family support to all the families of deaf children in the UK. Now, what is Delta? Now, Delta is a national charity which supports and develops the natural aural approach to the education of deaf children. Now, we know that the vast majority of deaf children can listen and to talk. We believe that this option should be available to all deaf children and their families, giving you informed choice for parents across the UK. We work to provide this information on the natural aural approach by organising meetings for families across the UK who want to help their deaf child to listen and to talk. And we also run events for the whole family, whether it's physical or online, which we're hoping to do this year, that they can learn the skills and techniques that they need. And we also like to inform local education authorities, doctors, health visitors, audiologists, and other professionals who help deaf children, and also about our approach to natural aural approach. Now, the natural aural approach does mean that deaf children is speaking for themselves naturally. We have two examples in front of us here today. I've got myself, who's profoundly deaf, and also been joined by my lovely trustee, Ellen Arthur, who is also deaf herself. Now, just to give you a bit of a roundup update on what is happening with Delta, is that we are celebrating our 40th birthday. It was last year, but due to what's happening last year, we are going to be celebrating Delta's 40th anniversary this year. More on that will be coming up soon. We also like to remind you that we have the London Marathon coming up later on this year in October 2021. We still have places available for you guys if you want to run, get fit and healthy, which I'm sure all of you have been doing in lockdown to get some exercise in. And we also have lots of opportunities for volunteers, or if you'd like to get involved with Delta, there's lots of summer stuff in fundraising, volunteering, and all sorts really. But most of all, we are here to provide you as a parent of a deaf child the support that you essentially need, particularly in this day and age where we are in lockdown. If you need any help whatsoever in terms of educating your deaf child, please do come back to us and message us either on Facebook or email us on any inquiries at deafeducation.org.uk. All the details are in the post of this Facebook Live there waiting for you. Now, the reason why we're doing the Facebook Live today is that we hear from parents who have attended our physical events, whether it's summer schools, information days, that the best thing they like about the summer schools and the information days is hearing the young deaf adult talk to them, ask questions to them, and basically give inspiration for their deaf child in the future ahead. Now, the best example I can really give is this lovely young lady here, Ellen Arthur, here with us today. If you'd like to say hello and tell us a bit about yourself, Ellen.
Hi everyone. So as you said, I'm Ellen. I am 24. Just turned 24 this a week ago, and I am profoundly deaf. I have 2 cochlear implants. I was born with it, and so was my sister also, who I'll explain a bit more later. I am a support worker with adults with learning disabilities, and I've been living in my own house for the 4 years with my partner. So I'll go into more detail about myself later.
Fantastic. So also for you guys as well, if you'd like to ask any questions please feel free. Please post your questions in the comments below, and then we'll come back to them towards the end of this live to go through your question. If there's anything you need to know from Ellen, myself, or about Delta, please do let us know. So I'm going to be asking you questions, Ellen, if you want.
Absolutely.
First of all, what are you up to today?
So what am I up to today? So I've been doing bits and bobs. I have been doing, so for the last 3 years, I've been a support worker for a company that looks after adults with learning disability. I go in and support them with their day-to-day activities, from personal care to banking, finance and medication, and various other things as well. So it's a very, very rewarding job, and I love it. I've been doing a care environment job now since I've left college, and I've just been loving it. It is amazing. I have an amazing team at work. I have also been, I have now been a trustee with Delta for the last couple of months, because I wanted to step up and give my experience as a deaf person myself and expertise of that kind of side, and give a bit more of a modern view to help and support Delta to get better and be a bigger charity as we are now. I am currently living, as I just said, in Oxfordshire with my partner. We've been together for 5 years now.
Wow.
Impressively, we haven't killed each other yet. But no, so we've been living together now for 4 years. We bought our house when I was 19, which was impressive actually. We didn't think we could do it, but we managed to get through it and did it. It's been a tough couple of years, but I've loved it. I wouldn't want to move back into my parents. I bet my parents would say the same. So I've been doing that. I am also a volunteer at some of the charities as well. I am a youth leader of a deaf group within my local deaf community, and we were, before this current situation, we were doing activities like bowling, laser quests. We were actually planning to do a big trip somewhere like the zoo, or so we were planning that before the situation came up, but we have been doing since then some Zoom activities, and we've been doing quiz nights, we're doing baking. So I support them and also help them with anything they need as well, about the deafness side. So about my deafness, if we want to go on about that.
Yeah, go for it. Let's go talk about your deafness.
So I was the first person in my family to be born with profoundly hearing loss. My mum and dad didn't know when I was born that I was deaf at the time. They thought, and the doctor thought, that I was hearing because I apparently passed the test. It was only until I was about 4 months old or so, around that kind of time, my mum started to pick up some signs and was a bit unsure of whether I could actually hear or not. She noticed that I wouldn't respond to certain noise at times. She noticed that when the dog barked, because we had a family dog at the time, that when he barks, I wouldn't react to it. But the biggest trigger that kind of kicked it all off was when she brought me back into the house and the door was open, and my dog Dougal was by the door, and he saw a hot air balloon going past the house, and he was barking at it, and for whatever reason Mum just had an instant to had to look at me, and she realized I wasn't like crying or just like getting shaken by it. So she was like, right, I think I need to do something about this. I think I need to find out if this is what I think it is. So she waited until I was having a nap in my cot upstairs, and she got 2 frying pans and went up to the cot and smashed them together. And obviously, as we now know, obviously we knew it was, I didn't wake up. So she went to the GP, and asked what advice and how to go about it, and they said that she needs to have a hearing test. So I was referred to the John Radcliffe at the time, and of course after doing some tests it was found out that I was deaf, and then I had further tests to find out where it came from, kind of thing, and it was found out that it was genetic. But at the time we didn't know why it was genetic, because my dad's side no one was deaf at all, and my mum is adopted, so there was no family history, and for the documents that she got there was any deafness in the family. So they were a bit like, oh, it was one of the things they didn't really think. Obviously when mum found out that I was deaf, understandably it was quite a bit of a shock to the system, to both of my parents. Of course they were a bit upset and thinking in the sense of, oh my god, how am I going to support this girl, how am I going to look after this, how am I going to give her the best life, and like what do we do in that sense of, and she immediately started going round and finding support groups in the area. She came across Delta, she came across the local deaf group, and she was doing all that. While that was happening, I was given hearing aids to have, which I had for about a year and a half, and it didn't work at all. Like it was not providing me the level of hearing I needed. And from all the channels I've been through the support group, she realised that I needed the next step up, was the cochlear implant, and that was what was advised by the doctors at the hospital. So after having delays due to grommets and me being ill, I eventually had a cochlear implant at 2 years old, which changed my life for the best, to be honest. And then onwards, because I'm a ginger, hot-headed, I immediately hit all my milestones with the talking. I started walking at 6 months old, and it went from then onwards. And then at 3 years old, my sister then was born. They immediately tested her because of me, and it was also turned out that she was deaf like me as well, with the same level of deafness. So again, because of me, she knew exactly what to do, and again decided to have Grace implanted, and that was at 4 months old. And yeah, so that's the childhood baby side of when I was first diagnosed.
So about your cochlear implants then, what manufacturer did you go with for cochlear implants?
So mum decided to go with Cochlear, and I think it was because, if I remember rightly, she felt that it would benefit me more in the style of what they were offering, because obviously these days we have all these cool little devices that are tiny and it's like hidden, whereas when I was 2 years old, it's probably maybe not so much of your head, but I had like a box, like literally like a box like this big, that had straps around like a rucksack, and then there was a wire that I had to have that would literally connect to a coil. That was a bit of a nightmare, should we just say. Me being a 2-year-old running around child with a cochlear implant, that, yeah, let's just say there was some accidents for that one.
So you have the one, or do you have two cochlear implants?
So I only had one, because in the 1990s, due to the cost of the cochlear implant at the time, it was much higher than it is now. They would only offer one at a time, and that was what the reason. And then they did that for quite a while. It was only into the last 5-10 years they've been doing 2 cochlear implants. But because of that, I was then offered to have the second cochlear implant when I was 16. And I wanted to wait until then because I didn't feel like I was ready for it when I was younger. And I will be honest, I regretted not having it earlier, because I would have felt they would benefit me more if I had it earlier. And yeah, so I had to wait until I wanted to do my Gcses first. And I had the operation a week after I finished my POM. And then 3 weeks after that, I went straight to America with my family.
So you were saying about how cochlear implants have like changed your life. How do you mean about that?
So it's given me the chance to be able to hear and to be able to talk like a touch box like I am. And it's really given me so many values of an understanding as well, I think, because it's given me so much more opportunities that I could do, and it's shown me how special and important cochlear implant is to me, because if I wasn't to have it and couldn't hear, I don't think, in my personal opinion, I would be where I am now.
Okay.
And I think and I am so grateful that my parents made that decision, because I knew, and still to this day, they weren't sure whether it was the right decision. And because I was obviously at 2 years old, they had to make that decision for me. I couldn't do it. And they had to make sure it was the right decision. And because due to me being the only deaf person in the family, they also had to think of the family, of what would also benefit the family as well. Because at the time of when they were making the decision of having a cochlear implant, they were also whether they would have had to thought that they would have had to sign to obviously to communicate with me. And they made that decision that they didn't want to do that. They thought that I would benefit more from a cochlear implant, because it would then mean I can go to a local school, but we've had the support that I did have. And it really did, it was truly the best decision that they made. And I still tell them this day that I'm grateful for that decision.
Fabulous. Well, we talk about your schooling. So you went to a mainstream school, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. For both primary and secondary.
And nursery as well.
Nursery, wow.
Yeah. And college. So I went to nursery down the road from my house. And that was a nursery, but I did have a teaching assistant with me, allocated for me to do one-to-one work. And then went to primary school, again in my area, luckily, and that was thankfully had a human resource base that was actually suited there. With Alison Holmans, who is a former Delta member and trustee, who she then, when I got implanted, she became my teacher of the deaf, and supported me for quite a big part of my life. And obviously, because of her and my family, is where I am right now. And then I went on to a secondary school, again with another human resource base there. And then college, again with a human resource base as well. Again, that was nursery and primary was my mum's decision. She did question potentially to send me to a school for the deaf, but that would mean I would have to board, because it would be too far for me to drive, me to get there every day and get back. It would have been too far. And they would thought that I would benefit from an education nearby, where they can then support as well, because my mum was a stay-at-home, so she didn't work, so she wanted to be there and give us the support that I needed, and she was giving me so much lessons at home as well.
Oh, well, you need her cooking as well. Exactly. You can't cook for yourself, can you?
No, absolutely.
So how did you do at school then? What about your GCSEs?
So I made the decision with my teacher of the deaf in my family to drop one GCSE to be able to then focus more on my main subjects, which is English, maths and science. I then picked up geography. I also picked up sociology, business studies. So I picked up those four. Yeah. And yeah. It's such a long time ago since I've done the GCSEs. So I did that, as well as one-to-one support, as well as for my teacher of the deaf and my TAs that I had, instead of doing that other GCSEs I could have done that was provided at that time, and that was agreed by the school, because they really helped me to make sure I could be the best as I could be with my GCSEs and the support I had from there. So I had a teacher of the deaf, I had two teaching assistants and note takers. So they would come into classes, sit next to me or near me, and would write notes down, because at the time, when I was in secondary school, I struggled with writing as well as listening at the same time. So I had that note taker that would do the notes for me, so I could then focus on the teacher a lot more, and then I could always then refer back to the notes for when I needed to. And she also, the note taker and teacher also helped me with group work. I hadn't had a radio aid that would be given to the teacher. In the later part of my secondary school, I had a sample system be put in, and I was part of the distance measure and actually training the teachers up of the deaf awareness for the rest of the deaf children that were also at my school, but also to show how to use the sample system and how to actually communicate as best they could with us. So I was a big part of that in secondary school.
What about this deaf awareness you've been talking about for teachers? Like, what deaf awareness tips could you give to teachers to undertake?
So the biggest ones I gave was them not wandering around the classes all the time, because that was the biggest thing they kept doing, is kept turning around and will talk to the board. And then I'll be like, I can't understand, because I rely on lip reading a lot. Even though I could hear, I rely on lip reading as well. No muffling, no wearing scarves that would muffle or jewelry. I gave them that to be very clear, very just normal, but very clear, and explain the task before to go ahead with the group work. Because a lot of the time we were then put into groups and then we were told what tasks to do, and I found that was too much, in the sense of I couldn't then focus on what the teacher was saying before I went into group work. I also said to the teacher that as deaf children, we needed to be nearer to the teacher at the front, and to one side as well, so then we could then hear and focus more, because I've always felt when I was in the back, I would get distracted by the other students around me, because we had quite a noisy class at a few times, and they always had to do their own thing. So I always thought if I could sit closer, I could then focus a lot more. And if I needed to get out to do one-to-one, I could get out easy enough. The other advice I would give to the teachers would be, especially if there's any videos, it was the biggest pet hate I had, is that there needed to be a transcript or subtitles provided beforehand, and if they couldn't do that, then they would need to send the video to my teacher of the deaf for me to then sit in my session with my teacher of the deaf and go through the video and have my teacher of the deaf explain it to me, and we will talk about the video before I was then to have the class.
Yeah.
Oh, and another big advice I would say is all teachers would need to give any note takers the teacher plan, like the session plans beforehand, so my note taker would know what to expect and know what's going to happen in that class, so they could then also support the person the best they could.
Fabulous. Wow, there's lots of things that's happening. What about when you were at school? How did you feel about being through school and through mainstream school?
So primary school was pretty much a breeze. I loved it, and my class groups were on the smaller side. It was brilliant, and they were very hands-on as well, so they were honestly really good. Secondary school was just as good. My head teacher was amazing. He would always make sure I had the support I needed and all the equipment I needed. I will admit I did have difficult times off and on throughout the time. It was more the first part of the school years, from years 7 to 9, I struggled a bit. It was more me finding my own place and finding about myself, and knowing where I stand in that school, and I had to learn a lot about myself and be the best I could be. And then when I got to year 10 and 11, it was the best years of my life, and I created some best friends from that character. I was doing I had a lot more freedom, and I was enjoying it, so I loved that. So yeah, so it was an interesting period of my time. I loved it. There was ups and downs, of course, as any child would have, not just because I was deaf. It was more of just a child that I did have a bit of bullying, but I got over it, and I had the best support from the teachers, from my parents, and my teacher of the deaf. They were amazing, and they showed me how I can be more confident and become more independent, because I am such a big helper and I love giving help to people. So my teacher, the deaf, knew that and was making sure that I had stuff to do. And like I was cleaning and fixing hearing aids, like I would do their ear molds and the tubes and clearing them out. I would fix the cochlear implant or hearing aid if it was broken. I would be giving training at the teachers' inset days for training. I would do that. One of the lessons I had in the later part of my, I think it was year 9, where we were talking about hearing, I actually did a presentation for that class about hearing and hearing loss and deafness, which was amazing. And it actually helped because the children then knew what was going on and how I would hear, and they didn't realise actually in theory the sound that was coming in was a robotic sound. It just then gets converted, and they were like, what? And they were shocked, and that made me feel more relaxed because they knew about me and my deafness, so they could help me more, and that was amazing.
Fabulous. Well, it seems like everything was going for you at school, and it seems like you really enjoyed it, and you went to prom, and then a week later, you had your cochlear implant operation.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk about it in school with a bang.
Absolutely. No, it was a good time.
Oh, good. Well, now, because you're a young deaf adult, and you're far much younger than I am. So what are your dreams and aspirations for the future ahead?
Oh, wow. My dream is to travel the world, and more so is to go abroad and volunteer to go and support other deaf children in low developing countries. And I want to do that and kind of like get deaf awareness sessions and and obviously help equipment side of things and try and promote about deafness in other countries. I would love to do that, and that is a big part of my dream that I want to do, and I'm trying to see if I can achieve it. I want to sell this house and get a bigger house within 5 years. But no, I kind of all my life I have been love giving back and supporting other people and giving back to charity and stuff, and I want to continue with that and do more and more if I could with the experience that I have. I want to keep giving back. So I don't know, I want to try and do something in that kind of level, but more of what I'm doing now. I kind of want to try and do it on a bigger scale if I can, hopefully. Get married. Get engaged.
Well, yeah. So yeah. Well, fantastic. Well, these are really, really great dreams, and you achieved as much as you can already to where you are today. But probably a question on everybody's mind is that how you and your family came to be involved in Delta and how you went through it.
So I'm sure it was just after I got implanted with a cochlear implant, and it was before I started going to nursery. Mum wanted to make sure, so my dad was involved with a lot of it, but because he had to work, my mum became more of my main caregiver as such, and she was the one who kind of head on with making sure I had the right support. She would talk to the schools and stuff like that. So mum was the one who was more involved, more of my dad. But so my mum researched and looked around, and I think she was told about Delta through a support group that was locally, and I think that's how. And I think Alison Holman also told her as well. And I think Alison Holman invited my family, me and Grace and Mum, to go to one of the Delta summer schools, because Grace would have just been implanted as well, I think. And she would have, I think she was about a year or so when we both went to the summer school, and I have pictures of that. That's going actually. I'm so young. And she then did the summer school, and she has said to me she took so much on and so much information, and she knew exactly what she needed to do. She knew exactly what support she needed to but also she knew what goal she wanted, and she knew what route to go down. Like she was given all these resources, and she knew what to do, and she went off and achieved that goal she wanted to do with me, and as well as Grace, obviously. And that's how she became with Delta, and that's how I then became into Delta, and that's why I then wanted to come back to when I then turned 16, 17, and I wanted to come along and become a volunteer with my first Delta summer school back in 2013.
I think that's right.
I remember off my head. And that was my first year that I came as long as a volunteer myself. And then as the years went on, I then decided I was ready to take the next step to become a member and then a trustee last year.
Fantastic. Well, we're so thankful for you having to be here to become a trustee. I'm sure that you bring lots of experience, your energy, I think, to say, and you're certainly a very talkative girl, and definitely really want to help out other families and kids across the UK. And what can you ask you? What's your favourite bit of volunteering at summer school?
My favourite bit of Delta summer school was the exclusivity and the inclusion. I mean, more of inclusion. That before then I was struggling to feel like I was a part of a group, or I felt like I was almost like I was the person who was just sitting there and not talking very much and not really could get involved. Whereas when I came along to my first weekend and I knew no one apart from Alison Holman's, I felt immediately part of like a family. As such, I felt like I knew you guys for years. And that's what made it more special, and that's why I wanted to stay on, because you guys kind of almost contributed to how I have them formed to a very mature adult now. And that's the biggest memory I remember, is that you all the members, all the volunteers, as well as the families as well. The families were amazing. Like between the sessions when we were back at the accommodation, they were loving it. Like we were sitting and chatting and talking about life experiences and like about what they're going on with their children, and it felt like I knew I could give them advice and make them feel a bit more relaxed and say, actually, I have that confidence knowing that my child is okay. My child's going to be fine in life. I haven't got to think, what are they going to be doing in life? And like, because that's the biggest thing, isn't it? When a child gets diagnosed with deafness, it's that thinking, oh my God, what is my child going to achieve? Are they going to be able to become an astronaut or a teacher or a scientist or whatever? And I think sometimes they feel that parents don't realise there is no limit. And that's what I loved about Delta, is that we can show to them there is no limit of what we can achieve.
Well, I can't think of anything better for you to finish on. So well done. Right. So we have a couple of questions from the people who've been commenting. So
yes.
Quite a few people commenting. So I'm going to say hello to Lynn and Megan Hamstone for watching.
Hi, Lynn and Megan.
And then Ruth, Lawton, Sue Lewis, and many more. And Linda Millam, nice to see you up there again. And we have a question from Ange Owl, who said, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self regarding school?
Oh, a good question. Okay, let me think about what I would say to myself back in school. To say that things are okay. I actually have achieved to where I wanted to be, because when I was younger, I know it sounds really stupid, I just never thought I would be able to have a relationship with someone and be able to have that loving relationship. And having the job I actually love, because I was worried about what kind of job could I do, because I was always, when I was younger, I was stuck in the same place. Was I thought there were limits. I didn't think I could do something that I wanted to do, and I would say back to myself that keep going as you are, and you will achieve so much more like you have now. And it's saying it's okay, because I did have a lot of anxiety when I was a younger person, and I will admit I still have anxiety now, but it's nowhere near like it used to be. And I know, and now I know how to work with it and contain it and understand what's going on. Whereas when I was younger, I didn't, because I was someone who's going through hormonal issues and puberty, and obviously issues with deafness, because obviously I was going through a phase where I didn't want anyone to see my cochlear implant or know that I was deaf, just because I didn't want them to think that I was stupid. And now I want to say, actually embrace your deafness, embrace it, be who you are, don't be scared to be what you want to be, like be the loudest person you want to be the bubbliest person, or if you're shy, it's okay, it'll be fine. Like find yourself inside what you want to be and keep that and have the confidence.
Wow, fabulous. I hope that answers your question, Angie. And we had a comment from Linda Millams who said, what a fabulous communicator. Great information for her daughter at secondary school, because all that definitely advice that you gave.
That's amazing.
And she also said that her daughter loved summer school and loved Grace. Always remembered her crying when we left. Oh, no. That happens to a lot of children. That's happened to a lot of children, because they love summer school. We take the kids out, go on trips, and the younger children will go into crèche, and then also go on the workshops. And so, children come and say, I don't want to go home, I want to spend, the rest of my summer holidays with you. So
I remember that.
Right. So I think I've come to the end of those comments. I just want to say a big thank you for taking your time to go to this Facebook Live. As you all know, it's our first Facebook Live for Deaf Education Through Listening and Talking, Delta. And we hope to do this with as many other people as possible throughout this year. So please watch this space. We will give you notification if we have another person joining us for an interview about their story. Meanwhile, if you'd like to get us to know more about Delta and the Natural Aural Approach, you're welcome to message us over Facebook, or you can actually email us at inquiries@deafeducation.org.uk. And we do also have a newsletter that we will be sending out in due course, if you'd like to learn more information about that. And we have plans ready for the following year ahead, but watch this space. We will do an announcement in due course. So if you have any questions, anything at all about your deaf child, getting involved in Delta, please do let us know. We'll be here for you and we'll be responding to you shortly. So thank you very much for watching. Any questions, please leave a comment. We'll get back to you. So thank you all very much. On behalf of myself and Ellen, thank you for watching. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.